Welcome to Blue Collar Startup. Our mission is to facilitate the growth and development of blue-collar businesses. Each episode will showcase real blue-collar businesses in interviews and use those stories to help educate and empower the next generation of trades workers to become blue-collar business owners. This is the Blue Collar Startup. Welcome. Josh Jewett, Cole's Collision. How are we doing? Appreciate you joining us on the show today. So, I figured we'd start out with just kind of you telling us a little bit about yourself, your background. I checked you out on the website and on the internet of what I could find out there about you, and it sounds like you got a pretty good story about from where you came from, where you are.
So, to take it back pretty far, started out in my childhood. My family, the Jewett side, all my father and his brothers were mechanics. So growing up, I was always around cars. My father was tinkering around with cars. My dad, at the time when I was a young kid, had 2 Corvettes at the same time. So I just became an automatic car guy. Loved it.
Didn't even have a choice, did you? It was just
no. It was right in front of me at all times, and something that I seemed to just gravitate towards. So being around it, I had a joy for it. So ultimately, as things got closer to graduating high school, going to college, I had to go to college, I knew, for something. Luckily, Hudson Valley has a course for automotive. I originally started out in the mechanical program. I thought I was going to be an auto mechanic just like my dad.
Yeah.
And the first year at the time for Hudson Valley was the same. So whether you went for mechanical or you went for auto body, you took the same first year of classes. So after the first year of doing engines, learning how to rebuild transmissions, some of the technical things, I was like, this isn't for me. So I started taking a look at the body shop side of it. Ultimately, the rest is history, but I really took to the body shop. It seemed to really just be a completely different avenue, a little bit more clean work. I wasn't getting greasy. And you could see at the end of the day, what you actually worked on, you can see the progression.
Sure.
So to me, it was kind of just, it felt good to actually, you can actually at the end of the day go home and say, you know what, I accomplished that.
Yeah.
So while I was going to Hudson Valley, I was working at a local car dealership, originally just cleaning cars. So I was a detail car jockey type guy. They had a body shop there, so I asked if I could, do an apprenticeship. Work alongside a mentor. They granted me that. So as I was going to school, I was also working hands-on after school. So as soon as I get out of college, I go right to the dealership.
Nice.
And work, 3-4 hours depending on when I got out of school. And that's where I really blossomed and took off. I love the atmosphere. It's just a different environment. But most of it is guys, but all of them have a similar sense of humor. Everybody's joking around, but yet we're getting things accomplished. Mm-hmm. I had, I couldn't wait to get out of school to go to work. It was just something that was just fun. It didn't seem like I was actually working.
Yeah.
So from that, from Hudson Valley, graduated, stayed working in that shop, started doing some things on my own, and actually got into the hands-on being a body tech.
Actually doing the body work. So. It was interesting. It never occurred to me that there were actually college programs for that type of stuff. Is most of the people that are in the industry, do they go to college for that, or is it?
No, it's kind of unique, and it's unique even to our area. Hudson Valley, I want to say it's a applied science. It's some way that they break down the degree, so you actually have an associate's when you graduate. I never looked further than that, but most of the technical schools, YO Tech, there's a Lincoln Tech, there's similar ones like that. You don't actually have a college associate's degree. It's just like a certificate. So it's kind of unique to our area.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure, honestly, how I found it, to be honest with you. When I originally knew I had to go to college, I don't think it was a guidance counselor. I think it might have been just more of somebody told me about it.
Was it Google? I mean, was Google a thing at that point? You're pretty young,
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
Can't recall how I found it. Could have been through also, some of the family members. They were all mechanics or
sure.
So possibly they knew about it.
Nice.
Because I think the program's actually been around since the 80s.
Still running strong.
Yeah.
Nice.
one of my best friends from Hudson Valley
Mm-hmm.
actually is the teacher now for the collision program.
Oh, no kidding.
At Hudson Valley, yeah. So him and I were in the same class, graduated the same year. He went on to be a BMW tech.
Yeah.
He started doing some training down in Jersey, came back, and he actually worked for us at Cole's Collision in our first location.
Nice.
Probably 3 years, maybe. And we ended up buying Spa Body Works in the market here in 2010. At that time, John took me out of that store in Albany and put me in Saratoga. And when we went to Saratoga, Matt, who was my friend, the teacher there at Hudson Valley, he had somebody gave him an offer to be the teacher, one of the lead teachers at Hudson Valley, and he took the opportunity. So he's been doing it now. He's been there almost been 12 years probably.
No kidding.
Yeah, and now he's a lead teacher there, part of that technical program, and he's taking it to a new, another level.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Huh. So, grew up in the environment, we'll say, right?
Yeah.
Around cars your whole life.
Yeah.
College for body work. How'd you end up at Kohl's?
So when I was doing body work at the dealership, myself and the manager never really saw eye to eye. That was the only little tidbit that kind of got a little awry. I was a young kid full of
piss and vinegar, as they
yeah,
say.
I was going to say that, but, so he didn't care for that. At the time I used to have spiky hair, gel, and if I came in the morning and I had my hair all dolled up, he immediately started to harass me. I think he thought there was something tied between the hair gel and me just not doing anything, in his opinion. So as soon as I came in, if I had my, cleaned myself up that morning, he was on me,
That's funny.
So him and I had some words a few times, and he had sent me home. And so this comes to another time, he sends me home kind of early in the morning. And looking back, I probably should have been fired on the spot for how I reacted, but I just looked him in the face. I said, listen, you're not doing this again. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, you're not sending me home again. You're affecting my pay. So I'm not going to give you that opportunity. So I left there, went to, at the time there was another dealership, Chevy dealership, that was looking for an estimator.
Mm-hmm.
And so I walk in there, there was a kid sitting there. Him and I graduated from Hudson Valley together. So I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were over here. And he's like, what are you doing? I said, well, I see you guys are looking for an estimator. And he's like, well, the boss is on vacation, but when he comes back Monday, I'll put a good word in for you. Okay. So Monday comes, and that's when John Cole called me and offered me the job as an estimator at Denoyer. So I, went back to the dealership and I said, hey, Frank, can we talk? And he's like, sure, what do you want? And I was like, well, I got to tell you, I told you you're never going to send me home again. And he's like, where are you going with this? And I said, today's my last day. I got another job. I'm out of here. So, and so from there I started as an estimator at Denoyer Chevrolet, and John was the actual manager of the shop. And then eventually, I moved up into assistant manager, running alongside of him. And 3 years in, maybe, he had some dealings going on with the dealership that they didn't keep up on their word, and he decided he was going to start on his own. So he had come down to me and said, hey, I think I'm going to start something on my own. I don't know what you're doing, but I'd love for you to come along with me. Nice. And so I was like, I don't know, 23 years old, maybe 22. I'm like, this job kind of sucks anyway. So I said, can't hurt.
Why not, right?
So ultimately, I went over there and started helping him renovate the building. So the first Kohl's Collision was a few different, the way it was set up, there was multiple buildings, mm-hmm. and they were separated by just like a door. And for us, we wanted flow and able to move cars in and out. Sure. So a lot of it was demolition. The office had been abandoned for a while, and so it was ripping out carpet, taking down whatever it took, basically. So it was just me and John remodeling the place. And that was in maybe October of 2006, and we opened up in January of 07. Okay. At our first location on Central Ave.
Oh, okay. So the Albany Central Ave, that was the first location.
Yep, not the one that is there currently.
Yeah.
It was further down, just on the other side of 155.
Okay.
Older place, but we cleaned it up the best we could.
Sure.
And if you recall, 2007 wasn't the best time to start a business.
No, the economy was a little shaky.
Similar to what's going on today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we first opened, John had these, ambitious goals that a lot of the connections that we had from the dealership, the insurance contacts, were just going to immediately, roll over to us, and we'd automatically start out with work. Didn't happen that way.
Yeah, never does it?
So the first few months was, quite interesting. There wasn't much going on. I remember specifically looking out on Central Ave, just kind of watching cars go by.
Hoping someone would get in an accident.
Anything. And John had a lot going on at the time, so his head wasn't in the game 100%. Mm-hmm. Funny little story, he rear ends us, so he's coming over the Twin Bridges, and the Twin Bridges is always a mess.
Yeah. And
he rear ends a car. So the morning there, I'm already there, and I'm like, where is he? He's not even here yet. Finally he shows up, and he's like all aggravated. The front end of his truck smashed, and I'm like, what happened to you? And he's like, oh, I looked up, ran into the back of this lady. He's like, what a horrible morning. He's like, the only good thing is we got ourselves a job.
Right.
He's like, actually, in fact, I got myself 2 jobs. Yeah. He's like, I convinced the lady to have us fix her car. It's on its way here. It'll be on the tow truck later on. So when we started out, it was just myself, John, and I was doing everything.
Yeah.
So it was estimates, garbage, detail, paint, body.
Chief cook and bottle washer, right?
It was everything that needed to happen. Had to happen through myself or John. And that went on for maybe 4 or 5 months until we slowly started to get some traction. John was trying hard on the advertisement. So he was, meeting and greeting and going to agents and trying to let them know that he started his own shop. Mm-hmm. And slowly but surely it started to turn around to where we could hire a body tech. So then it was, I was in the shop more. It was just me and the body tech doing body work, and I was doing more of the painting. Ended up being, we got another body tech after that. So it was 2 body techs, and I started to stay similarly in paint and in detail. And then we ended up getting another tech and able to hire a painter. That's when I went in the office.
Nice.
So probably before I went into the office, I was probably 8, 9 months of working on the floor. Interesting story, when I left the dealership, I was a kid, but I was making decent money at the dealership, salary plus commission on sales. And so I go to work for John, and I was like, how are we gonna do this, man? And he's like, I'll give you $10 an hour. And I'm like, all right, so how are we doing that? He's like, a check from me and Gina. So for the first 4 months, 5 months maybe, John gave me a personal check, out of his own personal bank account for $10 an hour. And so, ultimately, I had to have some faith in him in order to take the chance. But I lived at home at the time. So it was like, well, and he told me at the time what his plans were. His plans were to have multiple shops, and at some point, having me oversee them all. And
sounds like that plan's been executed.
He stuck to his word, and his goals at the time seemed ambitious, but he exceeded them.
So let's back up a little bit, and I think one of the things that's not talked about a lot in startup culture and in the entrepreneur arena is the fact that, and I always say this, that I don't know very many business owners that at some point in time weren't worried about keeping the lights on, mm-hmm. or putting gas in the tank or any of those things. So, like you said, I know every single person that I've ever met that, I shouldn't say every, that's a bad, no absolutes, right? But most of the people that I know of that have gone out and started their own business have been so optimistic. Like you said, we have all this business coming in from these insurance agents. They're just going to roll that right to me. Yeah. We're going to be eating nothing but filet mignon,
mm-hmm.
And then you get out there and it's nothing but cat food and crackers for the next year. So, what can you tell me about that time when you guys, you renovate the shop, you're still full of hope. You open you turn the lights on, you get the open sign in the window, so to speak, and then nobody shows up. Mm-hmm. What is that like? What does that feel like?
It's extremely stressful.
Yeah.
Because the lease payment keeps coming. Ultimately, the hopes and the aspirations start to dwindle because you're like, we should have started making it by now. We didn't buy creamer for the coffee. I'll never forget this. This is when I started drinking black coffee. John would even buy creamer for the coffee. He had a tag for the transfer station in Clifton Park for cardboard. We didn't even have a dumpster. And so he would pack up his truck, and if we had a bumper box or a hood box, he'd break them all up and put them in his truck and bring it to the transfer station in Clifton Park. We couldn't even, we didn't have a dumpster. And he always joked, and he said, listen, when we finally get a dumpster, we made it. So we ended up getting that dumpster, but there was a lot of hard times between even myself and John, because I was, going on his aspirations as well and optimism, like you said.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, it wasn't there. It was tough. Him and I had some, cross words here and there, and it
Sure.
wasn't anything that he was doing wrong. It was just that things were tight.
Yeah.
And he, he was under a lot of pressure, so he wasn't even being himself. We got into a little tit for tat down in the paint shop, and I joke about it, but it was about the cardboard again. And so he come down there, and all the cardboard boxes, garbage are everywhere. And he comes down there, he's like, you gotta pick up all this garbage. And I'm like, I'm not picking up the garbage. I said, I'm painting a car. And he's like, you gotta pick up the garbage. This place is a disaster. I was like, no, buddy, we're trying to get cars done. This isn't a priority. And him and I had some words, and he stormed off. And then he came back, and he's like, nah, you know what? I'm sorry. Can you just help me pick this up? I'm like, yeah, I'll help you pick it up. You got to go about it the right way. You're like coming down here screaming at me.
Right. But really, he wasn't screaming at you. He was just.
It was the time.
So much pressure. Yeah.
And the economy, like if you recall, 2007, 2008.
Oh yeah.
Was terrible.
Yeah.
And so it was, very, very, very troubling for somebody just starting out. And he had all the naysayers. As soon as John opened, anybody that was competition or in the business that knew him, he's crazy. He's going to fail. This is the worst time to start anything, blah, blah, blah. And he just, kept on trucking.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what ended up happening, what really saved us was there was a major hailstorm. So there was a big hailstorm in mainly over Gilliland area.
Yeah.
And our shop was just off 155, so there was kind of like, a couple miles from the shop. Huge hailstorm. Once the hailstorm hit, there was so much work for even the big players at the time that anything that we were getting that may have even seemed like scraps was still plenty.
Sure.
So we were able to keep hiring people, and that's what that literally saved us. The hailstorm.
The hailstorm.
Because the work was endless, and it was for 6-7 months.
Oh,
and
nice.
then at that point, we had some insurance connections that we didn't even have at the dealership.
Yeah.
That we started to get because we were getting, consistent customers of theirs that they were like, hey, would you guys want to be on the program? We'd love to be on the program. So then, that's how some of it started out.
Yeah. I always wonder how many successful businesses there are out there that really, they just got lucky at some point, right? Because if the hailstorm hadn't come, would you have made it? I mean, who knows? It's speculation, but it's still, there's always, I just always feel like in my own experience with different businesses I've launched over the years, and I've been now, I think 3 times in my life now where I've been in that cat food and cracker scenario where I'm launching a new business, I'm trying, I'm worried about not making it, and then just something happens and you just get lucky. You get that one client that brings in a windfall that gives you a little bit of breathing room or whatever happens, and
or a connection that you make.
A connection you make, yeah.
And this guy seems to know, more people, and you're like, wow, this just worked out. Just perfect timing.
Yeah.
So that was the hailstorm was our saving grace.
Nice.
And so that's what propelled us to be able to hire more people, get more traction, and then we could do some more advertisement. We actually started doing billboards. So today billboards I don't think is relevant maybe.
It's an interesting conversation because they're still out there on the good and plenty. People are still throwing stuff. But I mean, I feel like the real estate agents just love themselves some billboards. But they're still out there. I feel like, it's almost an untrackable marketing behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you say you had these people? We got 800 deals from a billboard, but I mean, for sure, brand recognition, it's got to count for something.
And that's what I think John was looking for, was just to get his name and it was I remember because he still got it on his desk. So when you'd sign up with, can't remember the company, it's one Lamar, I think.
Yeah.
And they give you a sample, and the sample is a billboard, a little metal frame billboard with your billboard on it, and he still has it on his desk.
No kidding.
So I I think it was like for him, you know, it was more of, look what we actually
affirmation or validation.
So he hasn't let go of it, never chucked it or threw it out, because to him it meant something more.
Well,
it's not the billboard, it's that what he was actually doing at the time.
Well, I kind of want a little billboard now, so I'm thinking about calling Lamar. I only want the billboard for a month, but I want that little one on my desk for the next 10 years.
Yeah, so and I remember we were trying to strategize, where should we put the billboard?
Right.
You know, like, it's going to matter. But, you know, at that point, we could start doing some advertising.
Yes.
And we started getting into some of the business, you know, colony chamber.
Yep.
To where you start to do some meet and greet. You know, you get some connections through
there. Do some networking, get some FaceTime,
Yeah, get to know some people. Again, same thing. People that know people, and then you might run into an agent that you never knew before. Or, you know, that says, you know what, this guy seems like a decent guy. I'll start sending my customers there when they get in an accident.
I'm always, I just think it's amazing that we don't see more people, and I really truly believe that, especially in the blue collar arena, that people should be out networking. And we don't see a lot of it. You see very, very little of it. But it's just the power of networking and being in a room with other people and knowing more people is just, I think it's priceless. You can't really put a number on it, man. Because sooner or later you meet the right people, and then you're getting into the right rooms, and you know, or getting calls on the bigger job. You know, like if you're a commercial plumber, like, hey, join the chamber, go to a networking event, man. Because next thing you know, you got this banker that has this issue, and they're giving you a call. And now you're working on a $300,000 job as opposed to, you know, changing a $200 toilet.
Exactly. Yeah. And so wherever we're located currently, we're part of that chamber.
Nice.
And we do some of the, you know, for the one here in Boston Spa, we'll host a breakfast. You know, sometimes they switch it up. They do some different events, and we'll sponsor it. And, you know, 25, 30 people show up.
Yeah.
And just, you know, mingle. It's small talk, and you never know where it's going to lead to.
Yeah.
And you might even meet somebody that you're looking for. You know, you're like, oh yeah, you know what? That's a good sector that I'm missing in my business, that I can start. You know, life insurance.
Yeah.
Different things that people can plug into with their employees that might be a benefit.
Yeah.
So.
I know Chad, my business partner, is the more frugal of the two of us. Thank God, because I'm very good at spending money. I'm good at making money, but I'm also very good at spending it. Chad's very good at holding on to it longer than I am. But so I'm always like, hey, we got to join this, you know, join this chamber, join this BNI, join this organization, and he's always puts the brakes on me a little bit. But the one thing is, every single organization that we've joined, we've turned into new business. Right. And we've pulled clients out of it and grown relationships that have led to even more, you know. So it's just really, I think, undervalued, the power of networking and being.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
No, it's awesome. So, all right, so get through the cat food and crackers. You're back to eating a normal diet. You're in the first location. What happens next? Because I mean, now when we look at it, you're at 5 locations, right? 5.
Yeah. Today. Yeah.
So tell me about, you know, between then and now, like how did we get here?
So that was 2007. We opened. Hailstorm was in 2008. That pushed us into kind of 2009 area, and John was approached by Ralph Deffenbaugh. Ralph had 2 locations in Saratoga County, and at the time, John was establishing himself with a very good name, high quality, cared about the customer, excellent customer service, and so Ralph wanted someone to purchase him that would carry on the same thing that he was already doing. And so Ralph had been established in the market here very well. He had a very good name, very reputable, and wanted John to purchase him. And John, you know, at the time, John's like, Ralph, I just started. I mean, I can't buy you out. This is just impossible. And so John went and sat with the Small Business Association and got an SBA loan, and basically threw it all on the table and said, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
So John purchased Spa Body Works in 2010. It was May of 2010, which was the Boston Spa location and the Wilton location. And so when originally I was the manager in Albany, so we had hired a guy that I worked with at the Cadillac dealership, my first place that I cut my teeth. The manager that was there came to work for us in Albany, and then John took me out of Albany and put me up here in Wilton.
Nice.
Which was a much smaller shop than I was used to. At the time, I was still early, mid-20s, 25, maybe 26, and I had to go up there and learn how to manage people that I've never met before, and try to grow a business that wasn't doing what it could. It's with full potential.
Sure. So that was your job, was kind of come up here and help really grow the market.
Yeah, take over the Wilton store.
Yep.
And make it something that it's not today. And another little tough point on that was so Ralph's daughter was the manager at the store in Wilton.
Oh.
So ultimately I had to go up there, work alongside her, kind of learn what she was doing. Some of the, they had a completely different management system than what we were used to in Albany, and we were going to be transferring that over. So I had to learn their management system so I could learn how to play the game and, see what our gross profit was and keep track of things. But then also, there's 5 guys up there that are fixing cars that I never met. And
sure.
Their opinion on what was quality could have been different than what I thought quality was in Albany. So
you can go south real quick, man.
It went south quick.
Okay.
It did.
All right, well, I don't want to cut you off because I definitely want to hear about this, but we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come right back and we'll hear all about that.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks.
This episode of Blue Collar Startup is brought to you by Daigle Cleaning Systems and Daigle Franchises. Launch your blue collar startup with a proven system like Daigle Cleaning Systems. This episode is also brought to you by Spa City Digital. Take your blue collar business to the next level with Spa City Digital, making marketing easier. Special thanks to our guest today, Josh Jewett from Coles Collision. And now back to the interview. All right, and we're back, and we are listening to Josh Jewett talk to us about things going south. So let's pick up where we left off here. You are in a new store, new people that you don't know, and you've got to try to figure out how to lead this team. And so tell us what happens.
So this is where my biggest growth came from. Ultimately, at the time, I was upset. John took me out of my, comfort spot, stuck me in a new building where I didn't know anybody, and I had to turn the place around. So ultimately, I had to shuffle my way into figuring out the paperwork rather quickly because we parted ways with the ownership's daughter. So that was the first uncharted territory that I've never been down before that I had to personally deal with. So, did that with her. We had a technician that was consistently producing problems. And so, sat him down, explained to him what the exact problems were, how to avoid the problems, but yet if they continue, we're going to have to do something here. Well, his son also worked for us.
Oh.
So
the plot thickens, huh?
Yeah. So talking to Dad, and then ultimately it sours the son.
Sure.
So you're trying, and the son did a very good job. He wasn't having issues. He was actually a very good producer, and him and his son and myself are the same age. So I think we actually had some in common because we were younger. He was a younger body tech and I was a younger manager. So ultimately, it didn't work out. So I had to dismiss the father and still had to keep the son from jumping ship because I needed him. And ultimately, I'm trying to grow a business, not kill the business.
No, right.
So we hung on to that and then started implementing some standard processes, quality measures, things in place to where there was checks and balances, things that they didn't have. And then we switched over our management system that I was familiar with so I could start really looking at, the books in hand and see what we had on pace. And so that was May of 2010. By 2012, we had almost quadrupled the business.
Wow.
So we were exceeding that spot. So that spot there originally was like 6,000 square feet, possibly, maybe 7,000, which was extremely small. And so at the time that was a lease. That building there was a leased building from the dealership. So there was a dealership up there, we were right behind. The owner of that dealership had just built a brand new building across the parking lot that he was going to, lease out separately. So they all had separate garage doors. He had it already all, in there tied to lease each one separately. And we were asking him about doing an addition on the building we were currently in. If we could, blow out a wall, give us some more room, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I didn't lease a single place over there yet. Why don't you go over there and see if it's something that you can make? So we went over and looked at it. Granted, at the time, it already had walls separating the garage doors, but it was all freespan. So we came up with a design, came up with a floor plan. He also had a construction business, and so they went in there, made our design exactly what we wanted. And so we moved from that original spot in Wilton behind the dealership, right next, across the parking lot, in 2012. So in 2012, we started we went from 6,000 square feet to about 12,000 square feet.
So let me ask you, because I'm sure, I want to know, I'm sure everybody wants to know, when you quadrupled the business, what would you attribute that growth to?
Consistency and honesty. I think that's this is going to sound strange, but the business that we're in, the body shop business, has had a bad rap for a long time. I think people look at it as it's a dirty, grungy, there's a guy in there, he looks like a gremlin, he takes the car behind a curtain, starts beating it with a hammer, brings it out, so it doesn't have the best appearance, our business, and we're completely opposite of that. Everything we do in the office space is all high-end, top-notch. We strive ourselves on customer service, and we're extremely honest, which is not common in the business.
Sure.
So I attribute the growth for Coles Collision in general is just strictly honesty. Anything that we need to fix the car, we will ask and fight tooth and nail with the insurance company to make sure that they will pay for it. If we don't need it, even if they wrote for it and the car doesn't need it, we have them take it off. Everything that we do is pure, because at the end of the day, we have to be able to give the customer an invoice, and they have a lifetime warranty on anything we do.
Mm-hmm.
So we want it to be the quality be as good as it can. You can't offer a lifetime warranty if you're putting out shoddy
crap
work.
Yeah.
And ultimately gives us an upper hand with the insurance company because they trust us.
Sure.
So when they come in the door and we're negotiating and trying to look at things, it makes the process a lot more smooth.
Yeah.
We've earned that over the years of being honest and transparent.
Is a lifetime guarantee, is that standard in your industry? Or
I think in most cases,
yeah,
it is. And that's the parts is the only thing that's not lifetime.
Sure.
If it's
wearable.
an OEM part, that's a standard 1 year. Aftermarket might be a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as our craftsmanship and our paint, so we use PPG. PPG stands behind us. So even if there's a imperfection or something that occurs years down the road,
sure,
and we bring it in, they take a look at it, they'll cover it under, they cover me ultimately for the labor, and we'll make it right for the customer.
That's interesting. Okay.
And that's another, a lot of some customers talk about diminished value. So car gets in an accident,
mm-hmm.
and now it's on paper worth less.
Sure.
Because it's been in an accident. Reality is, if it's fixed by the right people, the right way, it actually has more value than what it had. This is obviously my opinion.
Yeah.
But if that's the course it takes, that you're at say you're at a certified shop, they're fixing it, they fixed it by the manufacturer's guidelines, they're covering it now lifetime, including the refinish, which you didn't have before you got in the accident.
Right.
It's actually there's no diminished value if it's done right.
Yeah.
The problem is, not everybody does it right. So XYZ cuts the car apart, doesn't put it back together right. Now the customer has issues from the time they pick it up until, they're like, forget it, I'm trading this car in. And now it's, that car has diminished value. But if it's done properly, I don't think it does.
So you moved into a new shop.
Yep.
And then in 10 years, that was 2012, we're 2022 right now. In 10 years, you had 3 more locations.
Well, no, because in 2010, when we purchased...
Oh, there was 2 locations. Yes, okay.
Yep. So in 2012, we did 2 things that year. We moved that Wilton store
mm-hmm.
across, and John bought Lee's Plumbing in Clifton Park on Route 9. It was Lee's Plumbing. It was Pro Motostar. It was like a dirt bike shop.
Okay.
There was a speaker place in there, like a Boomer McLeod type thing. and a dog grooming. It was
Boomer McLeod.
Boomer McLeod.
I haven't thought about
that. Taking you back?
Do you remember those commercials? Boomer McLeod.
Yeah.
Advanced audio. That's a commercial. They were.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So they were in the front. They had like a set up in the front, all the speakers and all the craziness. But again, that was a free span building. So John purchased the building, and then we spent nights, weekends, knocking things down. Other employees that were then working for us came in to help us. We opened the entire place.
So it wasn't just you and John this time around?
No,
you actually
we had a little bit more help. I think he even hired some help.
Yeah, nice.
And so we went in and renovated that space in Clifton Park, and then we opened Coles Collision Clifton Park in, I think, November of 2012.
Okay.
Almost 2013. So if you want me to start fast forwarding.
Yeah, let's move. Yeah, let's do that.
2015, we moved our original location from 1904 Central Ave to 1517, which is right off the Northway.
Yeah.
So when you come right off the Northway, literally you'll run right into the place. That's our headquarters, is 1517 Central Ave. 2017, we opened in North Greenbush. So in North Greenbush, it was a miniature golf place, just after just past Hudson Valley. So we did some, it wasn't the most ideal plot of land. It was kind of built into a hill, and we had to do some explosives and blow out some rock.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, that's right up John's alley. But we ended up, making that spot there, and then we just moved again in Wilton. So the Wilton store that we moved into in 2012, that was a lease. Lease was coming up, and we wanted to own our own business, our own building.
Yeah.
So in during the pandemic here, we finished up the move in Wilton. We bought a parcel on Route 9, and now we're maybe a golf shot from where we were.
Yeah.
But now we're right on Route 9. Great visibility. That shop I just made a Tesla certified shop. So never ending. It seems like every few years we're building, putting up something new, always working on something.
Well, I think it's probably cliche at this point, but if you're not growing, you're dying.
Oh yeah.
And I truly believe that. I just think if you're not trying to push and grow, it doesn't matter if you need to or want to. If you're not trying to move forward and get bigger than you were yesterday, then you're just holding on, and it's a matter of time before you start dying. So,
I agree.
Yeah. Got to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking over the course of 2007, so 15 years.
Yep, roughly.
What do you think the biggest challenge that you guys saw was over that 15 years?
Staff.
Staff?
Yeah, it's what we do is very particular. It's not something you can just take some random person and teach them. It's very, there's a lot that goes into fixing a car, and even the last 5 years, how much the manufacturers have then changed the way they're constructing cars, and what materials they're using to construct the cars has changed it even faster. And so the body tech that you were looking for or thinking that you needed years ago, where you had 20 years experience, is out the window.
Yeah.
These guys need to be technical. They need to be very good at welding, being able to read the instructions. Basically anything that we do today, we're probably spending a couple hours on research and getting a very solid repair plan, so that way when the parts do land, we're able to execute it the correct way and the way the manufacturer wants it.
Right.
It's not how Coles Collision wants it. Some of that, we have our checks and balances, quality control like anybody else, but we do everything by manufacturer's statements. So if they say it has to be done this way, doesn't matter if Jim's doing it, Bob's doing it, doesn't matter the guy's name, we're doing it that way.
Yeah.
So everything's really, really changed.
I'm sure the Teslas have, it seems like every time I hear about any sort of repair work on Teslas, they are very finicky, very specific, and not very much like any other vehicle on the road.
Completely different.
So it's all new, different materials, different process, different everything. Yeah.
And those cars are so intelligent that even the customer, it's a different customer experience.
Sure.
The customer, those cars are loaded with cameras. So if you're not, diligent in what you're doing, you got the cameras open on the car, the customer has live information on the battery status. I think when Elon sells on these cars, he tells them that if the battery ever goes to 5%, your goose is cooked, because in the beginning we didn't understand that it was a learning process for us too. We went through training with Tesla, but they didn't give us each and every scenario that you're going to run into. So some of it was you learn as you go, and we had during the winter, as the cars sit there, they start to deplete the battery. Whether it's moving or not, every day it might take away, let's say 10, 15 miles in range. So if you got a customer's car sitting there waiting for parts, and every day he's losing 12 to 15 miles on his battery, say it had 100 miles when it came in, a few days later, the thing's at 5%, he's getting an alert on his phone that his Tesla's dead, and then he's calling up the front counter, giving them, hell, that you're killing my car. So
because those batteries, once they're done, they're done.
No. No. But that's what they tell the customer, that don't let this thing go past 5%. Or they set it in the customer's head, but they didn't set. Unfortunately, they didn't set that in our head when we originally started out. So we learned that quick, and then we came up with a process and more chargers. So what I did was in my shop in Albany, that was our first certified shop. Out on the side of the building, I got 3 Tesla chargers.
Nice. So
what we do is a customer's car, we've got a constant rotation. So I have a separate spreadsheet, which Teslas are at the shop, what's the battery status, and then I have a young gun that keeps an eye on them. Okay. And he'll rotate them. So he'll, this car is now at 200 miles, doesn't have to go on the charger for a while, move this over here. This car's getting delivered today. We always deliver the cars with a full charge. So depends, what the daily need is, but we're constantly moving the cars around.
Yeah. Now, just from talking to you, you sound like you're a big process guy.
Yeah.
And I just happen to know that you're not building 5 locations with, how many employees do you have now?
Close to 90.
90. Yeah. You're not building anything that big without having some processes. So what can you tell me about process building, updating, how you enforce them, how you teach them?
A lot of it came from just hands-on experience from myself. Building in what, basically the process came from what problems we were running into. So you have your let's say you have your little mini companies inside your company. So I have guys taking cars apart, that's a little mini company. I have guys that are actually fixing the car, mini company. Guys painting cars, it's a mini company. And ultimately what we did was we got them all together and said, what do you not like when it comes to yours? So once it gets into your hands, what are these guys doing that are causing a delay or issues, or and get feedback. And then we just built basically a quality control sheet based on what issues we don't want to see in each bucket. And then at the end, it gets a final review from management. They sign off on it, goes in the file. And then if ultimately there's an error, say that the customer has a comeback or an issue down the line, we can bring that in, obviously see who signed off on everything, and then have that conversation. We don't want it just to do paperwork. It's meant to solve majority of the problems and not create problems. Because another part of our industry is you don't want the customer to come back.
Right.
That really can put a bad taste in their mouth. If what they just spent their deductible, or whether it was cash, a lot of the stuff we're doing is expensive. Yeah. And then if they have a boomerang, you can take your CSI, crumple it up, and throw it in the garbage can. Yeah. Because and the same thing for the manufacturer. There was a survey maybe 2 years ago that I read, and I'm sure it's only increased since then. Let's say you have a Chevy Equinox. We fix it, Cole's Collision, not the dealership, and your door handle, we give it back to you and your door handle doesn't work. Doesn't matter the reason. It's up in the 80th percentile less likely that you're going to buy that same brand again.
Interesting.
They say that people mirror that the actual make and model of the vehicle to the issue, not why the issue was created. So it could have been created by Cole's Collision. Sure. And now they're going to buy a Honda Passport or something. Right. Because they associate the issue with General Motors. So that's what's changed most recently in our industry is the certifications. Yeah. So manufacturers are trying to align themselves with shops to have certified repairs they set certain goals,
Mm-hmm.
certain standards, certain equipment you need to have, education. I mean, you can imagine the what has to go into it, and there's a fee involved for you to participate. But the big picture is they want to align themselves with the best of the best because they don't want those issues.
Yeah.
Right? If you're doing a study and you realize that 80% of people aren't going to buy your brand because the car got fixed by ABC whatever, you're going to make sure that ABC whatever is doing a better job because that's affecting your car sales.
Mm-hmm.
So that's become the newer thing for the industry is certifications.
Yeah, which again is just an extension of process, right? Like
Correct.
they have a process for how they build and assemble the cars. They need you to follow a similar process when you're repairing and putting these cars back together. And I think just really speaks to the power of process. And for anybody that's listening that's thinking about growing a big business, you cannot build a scalable business without process.
Correct.
Pure and simple. I don't know of any businesses out there that have stood the test of time or been able to grow past a few employees without having processes that they build. And I actually, Derek, who's sitting behind us, you can't see on the camera, but Derek's back there. I think about something he said to me years ago when he was talking about a different level that he got his business to, and we were having a conversation about it, and I was like, well, so you were pulling your hair out over here, and now you're twice as big. How's it going? He's like, honestly, it's easier here because of the processes that we put in place.
Exactly.
And so
and similarly with us, having 5 locations is actually easier than having 1.
Yeah.
And you develop your team gets better, your team gets stronger.
Sure.
And that's something that we've been working on this year is leadership coming up behind myself. I'm not going to be doing this forever.
Right.
So we got to start building our team up so that way we continue this whether I'm there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who's sitting in the seat. We got to keep going. We're on the hamster wheel and it ain't stopping.
That's it.
So we decided to take this trek and we're going to just keep going for it.
No, it's great stuff, man. I love it. All right, so a couple of miscellaneous questions here. So, thoughts on work ethic?
It's priority.
Priority.
Yeah.
Priority number 1?
Yep.
Work ethic?
Yep.
Work hard?
Show up on time.
Show up on time.
The most basic things that are needed for a solid employee, whether you work at Price Chopper or you work for Coles Collision, if you have that, we'll give you every possible training, education, tools. We'll invest in you if you have that basic work ethic. Without it, forget it. We have an apprenticeship program that I designed myself. Same thing, here we go with the process. But day 1, orientation, they sit with myself and I explain to them, here's the things this is the red line. You do not want to cross this because I can't invest in you if you're not going to ultimately even just be a solid employee. And they're basic skills that you need.
Right.
You're on time. Don't call out 3 days a week. You don't come in the office swearing and creating a scene. Zero tolerance for a few items that are just duh. But you actually have to explain, but it also it stops the BS kind of in the beginning with the younger kids, because a lot of it is younger generation, 17 to 20 years old. They're coming in to start out and possibly be a body tech. I got to nip it in the bud from the beginning.
Yeah.
And set the what's expected here, and then ultimately, if they exceed expectation, we can give them some more monetary incentive. And that's the way we have it structured. So that way, when they come in the door, they know if I get to step 1, here's what they're going to do for me. If I get to step 2, here's what they're going to do for me. So that way we have a path in line, and that gets them to buy into it also and see that they have an opportunity. And so it's been successful for us, the apprenticeship program.
Yeah.
Right now, I have 8 live apprentices in the 5 locations.
Yeah.
Just growing my future. So
That's
ultimately,
amazing,
as we want to continue to keep growing, I can't do it without this.
Sure.
So my hopes are that I get the staff strong enough and built up enough that I have too many people, and that's when I know it's time to start looking at something else.
Yeah.
And then just keep going.
And do you the apprentices? Do you require them to have a college degree?
No. No. Some of them do. So some of them are through the connection at Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
I'd say half of them are through Votech or BOCES. A really strong relationship with Saratoga BOCES. They do part of their program. They drop the kids off during the school year, and they hang out at the shop for an hour and a half, 2 hours, get picked up by the bus. Some of them that like it or that we see potential in, we say, hey, what time you get out of school today? No, 2:30. Where do you live? Right down the street. Why don't you come work for us? And from the time you get out of school, you can hang out here till 5:30. Weeks off, that you spring break, whatever, you can work the whole week. And that's really been another success that we've had, is a lot of the students have come out of the BOCES program. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on college? Obviously, you have a college degree. You went to college for what you do. Which I was coming in here. I was interested in having this conversation because the previous interviewees on the show all have college degrees. None of them use their college degree for what they actually are doing for a living. So. So I, and again, not that I'm not against college. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on college. Worth it, not worth it. Need it, don't need it.
For us, it's not so much necessary. Ultimately, I think if you have it and you're not certain that you're going to do this forever, it's probably beneficial to have a college degree, even if it's just a 2-year. I think to get into some of the like State Police Academy, things like that, you need to have a minimum of a 2-year degree, I believe.
Sure.
So if this isn't something your heart is set on, it doesn't hurt to have it. I do say that some of the students that come to us from the Hudson Valley program excel faster.
Sure.
So let's say a BOCES student may take a good solid 2 years before they're ready to start fixing cars on their own. A Hudson Valley student coming out might be 4 months, 6 months.
Okay.
It's never as long as a BOCES student, so there is an advantage. The program obviously is more scaled directly towards the collision at Hudson Valley, where at BOCES they're doing minimal hands-on and they're still doing their standard math, English, that type of stuff. So when they do the hands-on at Hudson Valley, they seem to take a lot more from it, and also a lot of the guys from Hudson Valley work for me in between also.
Sure, so they're getting that.
So if I do it right and I play my cards right, I get the kid that is interested in Cole's Collision, and then also say, come work for me. School's a priority.
Yep.
When you get out of school, doesn't matter to me when it is. Come on over and work the rest of the day, and that's again part of our success.
Yeah. I know we're getting short on time. 2 more quick questions. One. Any day-to-day routines that you follow? Any crazy morning things going on? You drinking weird coffees?
No. Started working out this year at 5, so religious 5:30. Alarm goes off. I'm out of bed. Set up a spot downstairs in the basement, and so I'm working on myself kind of this year. Like the 3 boys, and was getting the dad bod, so I'm like, it's time to switch things up. And,
I'm in dad bod central right now, man. I gotta work on it.
Now I'm at a spot where I gotta show them the right things, not the wrong things, and so I wanted to just actually feel better for myself also.
Yeah.
I think that what's strange is even just doing that every morning for 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I'm in a better headspace. Yeah. I'm not as groggy, I'm not as foggy. I'm like, so I get up 5:30, and by 7, I'm like ready to roll, take on the world. Yeah.
Okay. And last question: if you were going to give listeners one piece of advice on being successful, whether it's in the blue collar industry or any other industry, what would it be?
My advice would be honesty. It sounds so simple, and I mentioned it before when we were talking. I think that people don't even expect it. Like, people don't expect you. It sounds weird to say that.
I know, it does, but you're right.
But people don't expect you to be honest. And then when you're honest, they're like, this guy is something else.
It's breathtaking, yeah.
They're like...
it's a breath of fresh air, man.
Where did you come from? How did you get here?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm just being honest. Honesty, I think, goes a long way. And then at that point, you have nothing to worry about either. You don't have to cover your tracks. You don't have to remember what you said. You don't have to do anything other than be yourself. So that's something I think is just a trait that will propel anyone to do anything. Yeah. It's just a standard being honest.
Love it. Love it, love it. Well, thank you very much for coming in this week and being on the show with us. Really great stuff, great stories, great information. Really do appreciate it. So, and thanks for listening to us here at the Blue Collar Startup, where each episode we're interviewing real blue-collar entrepreneurs, business owners, and managers to help educate and empower our listeners and to become the next generation of blue-collar business owners. If you're looking for more information on what we're actually, if people want to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
www.colescollision.com.
colescollision.com for Josh, and we are the Blue Collar Startup on Instagram only or bluecollarstartup.io. So thanks again, Josh. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
You got it.